So 5 minutes into the hour, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm Brad Burkhardt. I'm sort of your pilot for today's event, and try to keep the plane, steady and make sure everything works beautifully. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Once again, welcome to the energy of abundance. Stop struggling with money and live your purpose.
First of all, I want to welcome everyone. It's clear from the chat messages, there's people from all over the world, all over the United States. It's really fantastic to have your interest and your excitement about this. When Jennifer and I met not that long ago, we found out synchronistically that we have exactly the same views on abundance, and that our journeys, although we come from very different backgrounds, are very, very similar in terms of the things we've gone through and the things we've learned. And so that's why we decided to put together this little workshop and the ones to follow to share our experiences, our successes with you. It's important to realize that sometimes on our journey towards abundance, we struggle, right? We end up very poor. Most of us know that. But sometimes when you think that people are successful, and Jennifer and I each are successful and abundant in our own lives now, but Jennifer and I each had periods of deep struggle and deep poverty, and we turned it around. It's part of the journey.
I know a lot of people that are struggling with money and would love some assistance. And I feel like to empower people to get over their struggle and to create a better life just really excites me, just because I know what it feels like to not be able to do what you want to do, or not be able to serve the people you want to serve because you don't have the money to do so, or to feel really stressed out about your money situation. With quantum touch, a lot of people have felt empowered around their health. They get this power going with the energy, and they have trouble applying it to finance.
Yeah, that's the irony, isn't it, Jennifer, that a lot of people on the call today are energy healers, or you do their own energy work, or maybe even their own energy practice. But a lot of them are trying to figure out, how does that translate to business and marketing and all those other things. I think what happens to those of us in the healing professions, and one of my jobs is I'm a life coach, is we go into the zone, we use our energy skills when we're with a client or a patient, and then we forget about it and we sort of contract when we go out to the rest of the world. And it's that contracting that I think really screws us up. When we're in high flow, we're expansive. When we contract, we're tiny and nothing's flowing. And perhaps the thing that I stumbled on early in my career was I began to understand step by step, money is energy. Money's neutral. Money's not the root of all evil. It's the greed and fear that we put into money that makes it toxic. Abundance is so much more than money, right? It's a lifestyle, it's a way of being. And in fact, even more importantly, it's a way of feeling. And we hope to transmit that feeling to you because Jennifer and I have learned, not everything about abundance, but a certain amount of it in our personal and professional lives.
Right now, due to the circumstances around COVID, I think many people have seen a drop off in their income. And the tools that we want to teach and that we want to express can help. Sometimes you're getting into that abundance, and then, something like COVID happens and you're like, oh no, now what?
You mentioned something to me the other day. I asked you what the most important thing you wanted to communicate today was, and you said the victim mentality. Could you expand on that? Why is that crucial to abundance?
I had a beef with the law of attraction. And my beef is that I was doing all the mantras and I felt like I was doing everything right. And I felt like, okay, I'm following my heart. And so where's the money? And I think a lot of times if we do a deep dive into our situations or our issues, there's a bit of victim mentality that tends to come up.
Maybe the simplest way to think about that is, at a minimum, we create our own reality, or at least our own reaction to reality, wherever that may be.
But when less than optimal things happen, what can I change within myself and create a different reality? Because the reality is a reflection of our own vibrational frequency. And with the energy work, we can understand what vibrational frequency is.
The truth of the matter is that negative energy does have its own vibration pattern. And in a fractal universe, if you're holding a lot of negative energy or unhealed places in your body or your psyche, it will project itself into your reality.
Michael Signer, in his book, The Untethered Soul, I don't know how many people are familiar with that book. It's a wonderful book because he describes a process called relax and release. So instead of trying to push away the feeling, like breathe into the trigger. So if you're angry, breathe into that anger with the intent to release it. Or if you're hurt, breathe into that hurt with the intent to release it. Once, I get neutral around that feeling and I'm ready, I try to get into, well, what story am I running that creates that feeling? I've come to the conclusion that our stories, these things that really build our psyche and that build our energy, they're neither true nor false. That
What do
was
you
a
mean by
big
that, Jennifer? That's interesting.
that was a big realization for me.
Yeah.
So the universe to me is really fluid, meaning that it'll reflect back to you whatever stories that are within your being. I believe these triggers are an opportunity to rewrite our stories. As we rewrite the stories, things change in our external reality without having to change people. Because I used to try to change people, but I realized that doesn't work.
What I hear you saying is that the universe is a neutral, reflexive, refractive kind of entity or energy. And what's very interesting about that is, who am I going to blame? If the universe is just reflecting, my own journey or my own thoughts or my own feelings or my own vibrations. Now, the good news is, if the universe is reflecting, it can amplify the good parts of my journey and the positive parts of my thoughts and my feelings. And amplification in co-creation with the universe, I think, is critical.
Without intentionality, I feel like we just randomly, create whatever is the result of our energy projection. And whereas when you have an intention and a goal, the universe then understands like where you'd like to be. That's the hardest part about manifestation, is trying to figure out what you want or what you desire to create. That's sometimes where I struggle.
Yeah, it's called gaining clarity, right? And it takes some work. Just a sidebar on what you're saying there. I think we're always manifesting, but usually unconsciously. So therefore, when we have negative beliefs about ourselves or others or the world or circumstances, we're projecting those and it is manifesting. So if I'm walking around thinking unconsciously about, a story, one of those negative stories, if I've got 10 or 12 negative stories out there, they're very active in manifesting negative realities, which then, of course, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The flip side of this, as you said a few minutes ago, is to rewrite those stories. What I tend to do with myself and with my clients is say, when they have a negative story, write all your negative stories down and then create a column that says, what are the positive versions, the polar opposites? Right? In other words, the question is always for me and for others, what am I trying to teach myself? If I'm having a negative experience with another or a circumstance or my own being, what's the point here? It's not pointless. This is not a pointless universe. This is a universe full of meaning and full of learning if we let it be. So even the so-called fears and the so-called pain and the so-called negative things can be transformed. Whatever presents itself is there for a reason, usually for an opportunity to transform it.
We've been experiencing some things over here in our universe with my business partner where money is showing up without the use of logic or reason.
For me, as I mentioned earlier, I understand money is energy now. I never did for years because our culture doesn't teach us that. Money is just meant to be a means of exchange. It's really quite neutral, like you describing some aspects of the universe. And money is just a measurement of an exchange. Abundance is much more than money. Abundance is opening every cell in our body and every part of our neural pathways to openness, to discovery, to creativity and invention. Abundance is a feeling. Abundance is a tone in the body, right, that carries through to moments in relationships and business transactions. I've built my coaching practice over the last 15, 20 years without a website, without a business card, simply by going into the inner planes and attracting my clients energetically and using my energy skills to say, who can I serve and who can I serve well? And that relates to your sort of talk about the money shows up, abundance shows up when you're in your highest flow. And I can always measure whether I'm in a high flow or a low flow, if synchronicities are occurring or not. I take synchronicities as a measurement of high flow. People on this call all have some place in their life where they have natural flow. It could be healing practice with their healing practitioner, it could be sports, could be making love, could be anything they want, could be in nature. There's all moments where we know how our body feels alive and in harmony. And the question and the challenge becomes, well, wait a minute, if you know the taste of that, how do you apply that to all areas of your life, including money, including relationships, including so-called business? Instead of saying, what should I do next? I ask a different question, which is what wants to emerge, which is a co-creative question.
The quantum touch, the question that I now ask the business on a regular basis is, what would you like? Because I believe it's not about me, it's about the collective energy of everyone involved in this business, and that we're all co-creating it.
There's a lot of people that know how to use intentionality or the law of attraction to get money or make profit, usually at the expense of everybody else, right? Or anybody around them, or their family members, or so-called competitors. They just step on anybody and everybody should succeed. And those people that have values higher than that say, wait a minute, I'm not going to be a bastard to rip off people to succeed, so I guess they can't succeed. Well, what we're trying to do is change that story and say, look, you don't have to be that kind of person or that kind of organization to succeed. That isn't really success. You can be committed to your world service, to the higher good, and enter into that co-creative relationship with your colleagues, with the energy behind your business, and with the universe itself. And that's a completely different story than a zero-sum game of it's all competitive and, and the toughest guy or gal wins, right? We're changing the story back to how nature is teaching us. If people have trouble understanding these concepts, I just invite you to observe more deeply how nature works. Nature unto herself in our incredible planet is entirely collaborative and entirely co-creative. The old Darwinian story that it's just the competition for the best isn't quite whole. Darwin wasn't quite right about that. There's actually huge levels of collaboration and symbiosis throughout the entire natural universe. And I think it's long since past time for humanity to learn from the earth itself.
So I hope that you guys can continue to enjoy some of our courses and keep this topic and this discussion going, because it's just such a wonderful, amazing process that I've been through.
We have a lot more to share with you. This was just a kind of a taste of it. And like Jennifer, I love this topic. It's a really important topic, I think, for most of us. We'd love to see you again in the future. Thank you so much.